It's the top 5 Commander Gods.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to Commander Countdown. This is the series where we poll the community on different Commander topics and share those results with you. Special thank you to our sponsor, Architect and EDH Rec. Now, before we get into your top 5s, we like to go over our honorable mentions, which are basically the cards that we either think should have made the list or we just want to talk about them. So, Veggie, tell us a god that you wanted to talk about that wasn't in the top 5.
This is, I think, the newest god. It's Anzo the Quake Mole from Murders at Karlov Manor. It's 2, a red and a green for an 8/4. Whenever Anzo the Quake Mole becomes blocked, untap each creature you control. After this combat phase, there's an additional combat phase, and you can pay 7 mana to force Anzo to be blocked each combat this turn.
I feel like moles should have a bigger butt. I didn't expect this to be so controversial.
No, just like everything short-circuited. As far as moles go, maybe should, but here, if he had a big old butt, then you would take so many combats right away.
Yeah, I was just talking about moles in general. Anyway, I'll stop rabbit hole nonsense.
Mole.
Mole. I will stop mole holing. I like this. I think it's cute. I like that we have a god that is not the classic Greek or Roman mythology. I think this is fun.
Yeah. It breaks some god rules because this does not protect itself in any way. It's not indestructible. It doesn't bring itself back. It just, if it's gone, it's gone. But
that is weird.
Yeah.
Why did they choose to do that and make it a god?
Probably because this one is designed to die. Like if this thing kept coming back, it would be very, very strong because it's you run into stuff.
He's just a cute little guy. He's just teaching everybody how to earthbend.
Yeah. I really like this because I'm not really much of a Gruul player, but this is such a weird angle because the thing that it rewards you the most for playing is fogs. Because if you fog, it prevents all the damage for the turn. And then you swing. This just bounces off of whatever it blocks. You get another combat. You do it again. You do it again. You do it again. You do it again. And as long as you have any sort of attack trigger or some fogs are specific in like just preventing creature damage and you're trampling over or something, you take infinite combats.
There are also some pretty cool ones that prevent combat damage to your creatures only. They're usually a little expensive in the draft chaffee category, but things like that might actually be pretty cool with this as well.
Exactly.
All right, well, let's go ahead and talk about my honorable mention. And I cheated a little bit. I decided to put this one on the list because I actually got to play it in one of our upcoming episodes next month that we just filmed. So it was sort of at the forefront of my mind. And we're going to talk about Athreos, God of Passage.
Athreos is a 5/4 for 3 mana, indestructible. As long as your devotion to white and black is less than 7, it's not a creature. And whenever another creature you own dies, return it to your hand unless target opponent pays 3 life.
I enjoyed the aspect of getting to work with your opponents in a way where it's like, well, if you help me get this back, it will allow me to hurt this person that is in the lead, or using its ability to punish opponents that are very low in life total and like helping you get your value and your cards back. I thought this was a pretty cool mechanic. I really enjoyed it. Even when I didn't get the creature back, I still thought it was pretty nice.
Yeah, that's it's specifying target opponent and also creatures you own. So like if things get stolen too, that's relevant. In particular, I really like this one because it's cheap. It only costs 3 mana. It is maybe the cheapest god, period.
Yeah, I know there's some 2 mana demigods. I think it is tied for cheapest. I think there's 1 or 2 other 3 drops, but I think most of them are in the 4 range, 4 5s.
Yeah, that's such a strong, like both a 5/4 indestructible and return a bunch of your stuff to your hand for 3 mana is so strong.
And in the way that you want to build this, you want to have it out pretty cheap because you are sort of dumping a lot of 1 and 2 drop creatures onto the board. You want to get your Blood Artist back as quickly as possible. Yeah, casting him early really does help protect this deck from any sort of board clear, which it needs. That's enough about our honorable mentions. Let's go ahead and talk about your guys' top 5. We had a pretty good showing for votes, so big thank you to all of you who decided to vote. Don't forget, if you don't like our lists, make sure you vote. We have a link in the description down below for you guys to vote on our next topics, and the more people who do that, the better these lists are. So let's go ahead and talk about your number 5.
Number 5 is Xenagos, God of Revels, 3, a red and a green for a 6/5 indestructible. As long as your devotion to red and green is less than 7, Xenagos isn't a creature, and at the beginning of combat on your turn, another target creature you control gains haste and gets +X until end of turn, where X is that creature's power.
I have seen this played in a lot of deck lists, not just as the commander, but just for that second ability. You don't even need this to be a creature. It just hits incredibly hard the turn it comes down and does exactly what these Gruul beat decks want to do.
Yeah, it's even specifically, I've seen this forgotten a lot, is it can't even target itself. So you're using it just for the ability on something else. And usually you don't have to worry at all about the body.
No, this thing is crazy big. I cannot picture a better ability for Gruul.
Doubling a creature's power is very strong considering what things you can get for like 3 and 4 mana these days. I feel like they just recently printed a whole string of like 6 power creatures at like 3 mana and all in red and green.
Oh yeah, the pugnacious dinosaur or whatever. Yeah, there's a ton of them. The fact that this thing is going to trigger the turn it comes down and make something twice as big. Clicky clacks, get in here. Maybe
we'll get you some little shoes.
A little ham. Oh, that's a good idea, actually. Hammy booties for recording weekend. The fact that this is going to activate the turn it comes down and make something twice as big is pretty crazy and can surprise people. For 5 mana, I feel like you're going to get some big shocker, potentially kill player damage on here.
Yeah. The one tricky part about playing this as your commander is you have to target one player very, very strongly. And maybe you even take that player out of the game, but then it is very clear that you have that ability and you have to survive the next 2 players realizing they might get one-shotted.
I feel like that's one of the downsides of the big, heavy beat down decks is that the way people typically like to play commander is make sure that all players kind of get to play close to as long as they can until you can't let them live anymore.
Yeah, that is how commander players should play.
And and these decks get punished by doing that because it allows people to sort of set up. I feel like Gruul can win way more games if they just focus one person down and have a lot less to deal with. They remove a third of the answers from the table, and now all of a sudden the Gruul is in a much better position to win. So I think that these decks kind of struggle with the politics side. Let's go ahead and move on to your guys' number 4.
It's the Scarab God. I think the card that has made it onto the most commander countdowns in history. It's 3, a blue and a black for 5/5. At the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses X life, and you scry X, where X is the number of zombies you control. Then you can pay 4 to exile target creature from a graveyard, create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a 4/4 black zombie. And when the Scarab God dies, return it to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step.
This card's super annoying from standard. I will say it has made it onto the most commander countdowns, but that's a little unfair because we did Dimir, we commanders. We've only done like 2 other color pairings. We also did zombies. So it just happens to fit into the mold for a lot of the first topics we've done. But I do think it is a pretty fun and interesting card that people like to build around.
It's the top 5 Scarab Gods in Commander. I don't know. I think this thing is a little overrated, but it is also a classic, like all of these gods are. And I don't know. What have I not said about this card?
We've said a lot. And, the fact that it made the list for zombie decks, even though it's not a zombie, doesn't need to be. It is incredible value, incredibly difficult to deal with. It kind of does it all. I think it's one of the stronger gods, to be sure.
I think it's overrated because I don't think it does enough for 5 mana. It doesn't affect the board right away. And if I'm in Dimir, I think there are just better. I think there are better commanders. But if you look back at our Dimir list, you all don't think so. So maybe I'm wrong. Usually I am.
I don't know. I think it could be overhyped. I think that would be a fair assessment. Let's go ahead and jump to number 3. The first half of number 3 is...
It's Turrid God of Fright, you absolute psychopaths. It's 5 mana for a 4/5 menace. Whenever an opponent sacrifices a non-token permanent or discards a permanent card, you may put that card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. Now, you're flipping it around for me to read the backside. Nobody really cares if it's Commander. You're not playing the backside. The backside is Turgid's Lantern for 4 mana. Tap, target player loses 3 life unless they sacrifice a non-land permanent or discard a card, and you can pay 4 to untap it. But I don't think Commander player has ever seen that side of the card.
I like that side of the card. I've never played it in Commander, but it's my favorite way to kill people in Limited, that's for sure. This is a mean commander, from what I gather. I haven't, like I said, haven't played it myself, but I think she's sweet. Seems like the kind of thing I would like to build.
Yeah, it sure does.
But I would build it nice. My decks are always pretty nice.
Tell me how you built this nice. Unless you ignore all the text on the entire card, and you're just like, I don't know, I'll like. It's menace themed. You can't. Anything that leans into this strategy is mean. Because also it's very good. At least she is more killable than the other gods. There is not any sort of like godly protection for Turgid.
That is interesting. The other thing I think is weird about this particular thing for Commander is that the two sides are designed to play together. One is sort of an enabler for the other. So not being able to have multiple copies of that does make me kind of sad. I would like to play it on the artifact side and then copy it somehow and then get this one into the command zone. That seems pretty sweet. I think I would like to do something like that.
Yes, in mono black. But wait. I've solved the whole thing. If you made a commander deck that was not Turrid God of Fright, it was just Turgid's Lantern.
I would do that.
But just like this is what it's built around. I'm not casting it on the front side. It's just a lantern. That is my commander. I'm on board with that.
Okay. I'll take this building challenge. All right, chat. I have to know in the comments, do you guys hate Turgid as much as everybody else? Because I know Veggie doesn't like it, and I know most of the people we talk to from our play groups are not huge fans. But I want to know, is it as hated as my small sample size would suggest? But let's go ahead and talk about the number 2 spot as voted on by you guys.
Yes. This one I think you all should hate more. It's Perforos, God of the Forge. It's 3 in a red for a 6/5 indestructible. As long as your devotion to red is less than 5, it's not a creature. And whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Perforos deals 2 damage to each opponent. You can also pay 2 in a red to give creatures you control +1/+0 until end of turn. I don't know if anybody's ever done that.
I want to make goblins with this.
Yeah.
I think that would be amazing and super interesting for me to play against you. And by interesting, I mean evil.
But it takes all the fun out of goblins. I want my goblins to attack and overwhelm somebody with a million little 1/1s, and then I'm sacrificing and stuff, and Perforos doesn't even care. He's just like, oh, did you make 100 goblins? Cool. You don't get to that point because you've won already.
Well, you make the goblins and you shock everybody in the face for each goblin.
Yep.
And then there's all the things that make 2 to 3. That's great. And then it has a built-in mini trumpet blast.
Yeah, but you'd never get to that point. People are dead before you have to go to combat.
Is that a problem?
Yeah, that's no fun.
I don't see the problem here.
I don't know. If you're gonna go goblins, you go with some other cool goblin. This thing it's like
Some other cool god. There's like 2. How many goblin commanders are we playing?
So many. So many goblin commanders.
I can think of like 2 or 3.
I don't know. That's my overall.
So what are you building with this then?
I'm not building with this. I don't know.
Well, you're hating on the goblins version. What is the version that you want people to hate this for?
Okay. So I think if you're like, okay, I would like to win by making a bunch of creatures and Perforos shoots everybody in the face, right? Then you can do it without goblins. You can do it with any other.
There's a creature type in Monor Red that poops out more dudes than goblins.
I think you do it with combos. You could do spell slingers, spells that make
spell slingers
creatures.
known for pooping out a lot of creatures.
Yeah. In fact, I don't know when this comes out, but we just did a deck that was both goblin and spell slinger and pooped out a bunch of not goblin creatures.
What? That's not the deck I built.
No, I built it.
Oh.
But you all will see.
Yeah, but that deck did poop out some tokens. Okay.
Yeah. I'll even say this. Maybe it's the best goblin commander. But why? Like, they didn't need the help. If you made that many goblins anyway, you're already going to be able to kill. Why would you put, weird metal dude in as the leader of your goblins instead of weird little goblin guy?
Because goblins need a little help sometimes.
No, they don't.
Well, they've killed my enchantment. It stopped me from winning the game when I played goblins on the show.
I don't remember that.
I had the thing where you deal an extra damage every time the goblin attacks, and they killed it. And then I now no longer could win.
We should have made more goblins.
Are you ready for number 1?
Yes.
All right. Well, let's talk about
how you all cheated again. Number 1 is Asika, God of the Tree. Yes, it is a god. It's 3 mana for a 1/4 with vigilance. Tap for a mana of any color. And other legendary creatures you control have vigilance and tap for a mana of any color. But most people that are playing this literally have it flipped around in the sleeve. Because all you see is the Prismatic Bridge, which is 1 of every color for legendary enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature or planeswalker. Put that onto the battlefield and the rest on the bottom.
I mean, it feels like something a god would do. And I like the Norse mythology vibe that we're putting off here. I think that this is a cool god-themed card. But I agree. I guess it's only technically a god.
Only technically a god.
So wait, if you think cheating, if you think putting this on the god list is cheating, then putting this in the command zone is definitely cheating. So you're not allowed to have an enchantment in the command zone.
Yes, that's yes. We've got there. That's the thing. The weird little commander things where whatever's on the backside, as long as the front side's legendary creature, it is your commander.
I still give it god flavor points. The Prismatic Bridge is very flavorful. I would
also not eat this. But
taste the rainbow, veggie.
Okay, I'll give you points for that. I do like cards where you're kind of like rolling the dice a little bit. Of course, I think it's not often that these players are rolling the dice and are probably affecting the top of their library a little bit.
Or just everything in the deck is made to be a big mean thing anyway.
Yeah.
So you're rolling the dice in a stacked bag of dice that all suck.
Yes.
For everyone.
Or they're polymorphing and there's only one creature / planeswalker in the whole deck.
Oh no, let's not do that version.
Yeah. There's also credit there. There's a lot of different ways to build this. A lot of them turn out to be like 5-color soup.
Both of us, we've both talked a little bit on the show about how we're not a huge fan of 5-color decks because of the whole turn into 5-color soup, good stuff thing. So I'll also, we're probably not the best judge here for having this on the top 5, but I think it's very popular and was voted on by you, number 1, very, very, what's the words I'm looking for? By a lot.
Very, yes.
Very by a lot.
Biggest.
Much vote.
Top. Did it.
All right, guys, that is the end of the best gods in Magic for Commander. Make sure you guys go down in the description below. We have a link to our voting website, and you guys can vote on our next couple of topics. Our next one is the best enchantments in Commander, and we need more votes. So please, please, please check that out and make sure you guys are doing it.
And I swear to God, if you pick the Prismatic Bridge as the best enchantment, I'm gonna open up. We're gonna look at the votes, and it's gonna be number 1 Prismatic Bridge, number 2 Scarab God, and I'm gonna have to.
All right. Well, before we get too crazy, let's go ahead and move on to the next segment of the show. Thanks to our sponsors, Architect and EDH Rec, we have a deck tech submitted by one of our patrons that matches the theme of today's episode.
Today's deck list was submitted by our patron, Blind Cyclops. It's Coolstuffinc, God of Horizons. 3, a green and a blue for a 4/7 indestructible. As long as your devotion to green and blue is less than 7, then it isn't a creature. No max hand size. Mana does not empty from your mana pool. It just becomes colorless.
Now, we actually have a little bit more insight to this deck because we actually got to shuffle it up and play this past weekend for one of our episodes for next month. Hammy. Veggie, you were the pilot of this episode. Are you excited about going over it in this deck tech now that you've gotten a chance to sleeve it up?
Yeah, because this is very definitely my kind of deck. It's half blue, and it's this weird angle of trying to generate mana that you're not using right away.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Let's take a look at the deck list, and then we will ask you some questions about how it played in the episode without any spoilers, of course. We don't want to ruin the future episode for you guys.
All right. So these, I think, is pretty standard with the Ichor Gauntlet being the standout here.
Yeah. The Soul Ring is not out yet, right?
It's actually been out for a long time. I think it came out in alpha.
So tell us why Ichor Gauntlet is the standout.
I mean, because the rest of these things are pretty common, I think. Soul Ring, which is
that one's a mythic
from the Fallout set, which hasn't released yet. Yeah, both the Ichor Gauntlet and the Ozolith, which is the Lord of the Rings version here, signal that we're going to be doing some planeswalkery countery stuff, which is not, I think, the most obvious approach to big mana.
But some of these creatures are certainly something you can do with big mana. Yeah,
first of all, they're all a little pricey, which you're going to be able to cast no problem. I think Ave is super interesting because it is a big mana payoff. Inherently, Coolstuffinc wants you to kind of do one big turn. You're building and building and building and building until you decide to spend all of that mana. And that probably means you're playing a bunch of spells all in one turn. I'll take a Stormy Ooze.
It also has a lot here just on this first page for +1/+1 counters. We've got 2 ways to proliferate with the Bloom Hulk and the Evolution Sage. And we also have cards like the Avenger of Zendikar that's going to make a bunch of different creatures and bodies and counters on them. And that's going to get real big and real scary very quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you even have the +1 counter WinCon.
Herald, yeah. There's our first semi-unofficial Planeswalker with Jace Vryn's Prodigy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're seeing more proliferate. We're seeing more counters. So it's leaning pretty heavily into the +1 counter strategy.
That's my kind of strategy.
My number one include, as soon as I looked at the commander, Seaborn Muse. Card is very strong, but sometimes it generates so much mana that you don't know what to do with it. You can't spend all of your, you can't tap all of your lands on every player's turn. But here, you're just putting that mana in the bank on every player's turn.
Yep, you just need some green fireballs.
Looks like the rest of these are like counters.
Song of Freyalise, more counters. Yep.
Yeah. Now, Simic Ascendancy, I guess, kind of a realistic win con here because you are building up a ton of mana. You will have to figure out where to get the 20 green and 20 blue mana to be able to just hit it all in one go. But you probably don't need to put all 20 counters on it.
Especially with all the proliferate. Oh, we found an X spell for some of that extra mana.
It's nice too because it recycles itself. So you don't need as many different X spells if you've got one that you get to play over and over again.
Now, mana, that could be a good place to find some colorless mana sinks as well. So let's see what we've got going on.
Oh, you got that like card draw from Arch of Araska. Alchemist Refuge is a sneaky outlet for extra mana because you can dump all the things in your hand on somebody else's turn.
Pretty straightforward so far. I was expecting to see a little bit more.
Well, we knew we were going to have some planeswalkers with that Ickermoon Gauntlet.
Not as many as I would have thought. Oh, Biogenic Upgrade. That's a expensive spell.
I think it's really a secret counters deck. The Crewfix may even be kind of a word that means you're faking them out.
Red herring.
But it's Simic.
All right. So, Veggie, you got to pilot this deck this past week. So, overall, how did you feel about the deck as a whole? And how cohesive was the plan once you were actually sitting down to play it?
I got to generate a lot of mana very quickly. Big success there. I'm trying not to
spoilers.
like spoil, but I had some payoffs for it, but not consistently.
Okay. So maybe we would like to see some more big mana payoffs. As far as the counter synergies go, do you think that this that's what we're seeing here on the deck list? Do you think that translated well onto the playmat?
I know that in game I struggled on how much to focus on these two different strategies of like big mana and counters. I think I ended up getting more of the big mana half of the deck. So the counters ended up not being as impactful if I had gotten more of the ones that synergized together.
Okay, fair enough. So on the veggie scale, flavor, power, everything, what are you thinking you would rate this?
This deck is definitely my style. It's a weird like commander, and it's focusing on a couple different strategies at a time. I definitely would want to see a couple more ways to weave those strategies together. If there were more mana sinks that made counters, or ways to convert the colorless mana into blue and green mana. You do end up with a big indestructible creature. I would want to be able to really pack the counters onto that and start swinging as well. Just something to give me a little bit more like game-ending oomph.
Yeah, and even I think there's probably a couple of spots too where you can maybe just get some more synergy style cards that are not necessarily game enders, but like X, like Tyvar's Stand comes to mind. I'm not saying it's like a hard-hitting must-have or must-include, but I think it would fit the style of the deck a little bit more. And to me, those things are kind of important.
Yeah, I think the flexibility there is a really nice choice because you can play it as a 1 mana like Save My Thing, or it's a surprise you're dead because I had
30,000 mana.
Yeah.
Exactly. So 1 to 10 veggie, what are you going to give it on the veggie scale?
I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10 on the veggie scale. Okay. I think it's a great choice of commander. I like the options and strategy. I just want to see a little bit more cohesion in how those two strategies work together. And cards that are like more optimized to use both strategies at the same time.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same sort of path as you. I'm also going to give it a 6. I want to see either something to do more with the mana or to have more instants and sorceries that can sort of capitalize on having cards like Seedborn Muse or just extra mana on your opponent's turn in play, whether those are counter spells or Tyvar's Stand and combat tricks, I think would make me much happier. I do like the counter synergy. I think that's a really cool thing. And I did see some like 6-7 mana payoffs for having counters and creatures. So I'm a big fan of that. I think there's a lot here with this deck, and I think it would be pretty fun to play.
Yeah.
I'm kind of jelly you got to play it.
It was a good time.
All right, guys. So that is the end of our deck tech. Thank you so much, Blind Cyclops, for submitting this deck, not only for us to check out here on Countdown, but also for us to play on Decked Out.
Thank you again to our sponsor for the show, Architect and EDH Rec. Excellent tools for deck building and deck sharing and deck stuff.
Yeah. And if you guys would like to have your deck list featured on the show, you guys can head on over to our Patreon, just like Blind Cyclops, and grab yourself some exclusive perks like deck techs here on Countdown. You can get signed tokens every month from the cast and all of our guests. You can get into spell table games with us. So head on over to our Patreon and become a part of the show.
And of course, make sure to like the video if you liked it and subscribe to the channel if you really liked it. It helps us a whole lot. I think that's it for today. We'll see you next time on
Commander Countdown.